The valley of Divernic, a verdant pocket nestled against the looming, silent threat of the wood, was a place defined by a singular, 10-year rhythm. For generations, the villagers lived under the watchful, unblinking eye of the dragon, a powerful and enigmatic wizard who dwelled in his solitary tower on the very edge of the corrupted forest. This dragon, known by his true name, Sarkhan, was their protector, the solitary shield against the insidious spread of the wood's malevolence. But this protection came at a steep, annual price. Every 10 years, one young woman, aged 17, was chosen from the village and taken to the dragon's tower, a ritual both dreaded and grudgingly accepted. It was the valley's grim toll for its continued existence, a sacrifice that ensured the wood's dark tendrils did not consume them entirely. Agnieszka, with her perpetually unruly hair and an innate clumsiness that seemed to follow her like a shadow, found herself growing up under the ever-present weight of this approaching decade. She was a girl who preferred the rough textures of the forest floor to the polished comfort of village life, her hands more at home tending to stray roots than intricate embroidery. Her best friend, Kasia, was everything Agnieszka was not, graceful, poised, with a radiant beauty that drew every eye. Everyone in Divernic, including Agnieszka herself, implicitly understood that when the time came, Kasia would be the one chosen. She embodied the ideal of what the dragon's mysterious selection seemed to demand. The air in the village was thick with an unspoken anxiety, a nervous hum that intensified with each passing day. Mothers held their daughters a little tighter, their gazes filled with a mixture of love and a silent, heartbreaking resignation. Kasia, in a gesture born of deep, protective affection, even tried to teach Agnieszka how to handle a knife, a small, desperate act against an unstoppable force. The day of the choosing dawned, hushed and unnervingly still. The dragon, a towering figure whose presence seemed to draw the very light from the air, moved slowly among the assembled, trembling girls. His gaze, ancient and piercing, swept over their expectant, fearful faces. A collective, shuddering breath was held, for everyone knew the outcome, a silent, predetermined sorrow. It would be Kasia. Her beauty, her strength, her vibrant spirit, all marked her as the inevitable choice. Agnieszka, attempting to make herself smaller behind her friend, felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach, a desperate, futile wish to stop time, to rewind the moments. Then, the impossible happened. The dragon's long, pale finger pointed not at Kasia but at Agnieszka. A ripple of gasps broke the stunned silence, followed by a profound, disbelieving quiet. Agnieszka's world tilted, her clumsy, unremarkable self chosen by the formidable dragon? It felt like a cruel, nonsensical joke, a cosmic error of epic proportions. Kasia, though visibly shaken, rushed to her, embracing her fiercely, tears streaming down her face, while Agnieszka remained rooted to the spot, utterly, overwhelmingly bewildered. The journey to the dragon's tower was a blur of disoriented fear. Agnieszka was half led, half propelled, her mind spinning with chaotic thoughts. The tower itself was stark and unwelcoming, an edifice of cold stone and ancient secrets. Inside, it was a labyrinth of echoing corridors, towering shelves laden with esoteric tomes, and strange, arcane artifacts that seemed to hum with unseen power. Sarkhan, the dragon, wasted no time in dispelling any romantic notions she might have harbored. She was not a sacrifice nor a decorative captive. She was to be his apprentice, to learn the arcane arts of magic. Sarkhan's teaching methods were brutal, his expectations impossibly high. He was a creature of meticulous order, of precise incantations, and logical deductions. For him, magic was a refined science, a series of complex formulas and perfectly executed gestures, born of rigorous study and intellectual mastery. Agnieszka, however, found herself drawn to a different kind of magic entirely, an intuitive, wilder force that seemed to spring from the very earth, whispering through the leaves and humming in the veins of stones. She struggled against Sarkhan's rigid structure, her spells often backfiring in spectacular, messy ways. She'd turn water into thick, golden honey instead of a clear stream, or conjure a chaotic explosion of wildflowers instead of a focused beam of light. Sarkhan was perpetually exasperated, his stern face often contorted in a mixture of disbelief, annoyance, and a grudging, almost hidden, amusement. He called her a clotpole, a fool, and other less flattering epithets, his words stinging but never quite breaking her spirit. Yet, despite his harshness, Agnieszka began to sense a profound, aching loneliness in him, a deep-seated weariness that no amount of power could alleviate. He was a formidable guardian, but also a prisoner of his own solitude and the immense, isolating burden of his responsibility. One afternoon, during a particularly frustrating lesson, Agnieszka's innate, untamed magic manifested itself in a way that defied Sarkhan's entire understanding. A group of villagers, having unwisely ventured too close to the corrupted fringes of the wood, returned to Dvernik afflicted by a strange, creeping blight. Their skin was slowly turning into thorny, woody growths, their minds slipping into a dark, confused delirium, a common, horrifying symptom of the wood's insidious influence. Sarkhan, ever the pragmatist, declared their condition incurable, a tragic but unavoidable consequence of living so close to the corrupted forest. He believed they were beyond help, a lost cause destined for the wood's slow embrace. But Agnieszka, fueled by a fierce refusal to abandon her people and a deep well of empathy, felt an intuitive surge of understanding. She didn't know how, but she felt a way to combat the blight, a primal knowledge blooming within her. Ignoring Sarkhan's sharp protests, she instinctively reached for a small, stunted birch tree, pouring her raw, unrefined magic into its gnarled trunk. The tree began to writhe and contort, its branches twisting into grotesque, unnatural shapes, its leaves shriveling into brittle dust. It was a harrowing, almost violent sight, a physical manifestation of the corrupted essence she was attempting to draw out. Sarkhan watched, a mixture of disbelief, horror, and a grudging, almost scientific curiosity on his face. When Agnieszka finally finished, utterly exhausted and trembling, the afflicted villagers, to everyone's astonishment, began to recover. The woody growths receded from their skin, their eyes slowly clearing, their minds returning to them. It was a messy, dangerous, and utterly unorthodox cure, completely antithetical to Sarkhan's precise, controlled methods, but it worked. This moment marked a profound turning point in their fraught relationship. Sarkhan, though still critical of her lack of discipline and chaotic methods, began to see the immense, raw power Agnieszka possessed. A power that could achieve what his precise, logical magic could not. He began to adapt his teaching, albeit reluctantly, recognizing that her magic was fundamentally different, a wild force to be guided and understood, not simply tamed. Their training continued, a strange, often contentious dance between Sarkhan's rigid structure and Agnieszka's intuitive wildness. She learned to control her raw power, not by intellectualizing it, but by feeling it, by understanding its natural, organic flow. Sarkhan, in turn, began to grudgingly acknowledge the efficacy of her methods, even if he didn't fully comprehend the underlying mechanisms. He watched her with a new, almost clinical curiosity, his vast intellect grappling with the intangible, the unpredictable. They encountered new threats from the ever-encroaching wood, each one testing their combined abilities. They learned to work together, a grudging partnership forged in the face of shared danger. Agnieszka learned to appreciate Sarkhan's immense knowledge, his centuries of arcane wisdom, and his unwavering, if gruff, commitment to protecting the valley, even as she often chafed under his abrasive demeanor. She began to see the heavy burden of responsibility he carried, the constant, draining vigilance required to keep the corruption of the wood at bay, a task that had consumed his entire unnaturally long life. During one particularly harrowing excursion into the wood, investigating a new, more aggressive manifestation of its corruption, they stumbled upon a village, long thought lost to the wood's overwhelming influence. To their astonishment, a small, desperate community still clung to a tenuous existence within the corrupted depths. Its inhabitants were gaunt, sickly, their eyes haunted, living in a perpetual twilight of fear, their very breath a struggle against the tainted air. They were the descendants of the original settlers, but their land was so deeply tainted that even the air felt heavy with decay. Among them, Agnieszka discovered a young woman, similarly afflicted by the wood's blight, but with a unique, unsettling difference. She was subtly, terrifyingly, connected to the wood itself, almost becoming a part of its spreading corruption. Agnieszka, recalling her earlier, messy, but effective cure, instinctively knew what to do. She drew upon her deep, inherent connection to the earth and its raw magic, performing a ritual of purification that was both intensely painful for the girl and profoundly transformative. The woman was freed from the wood's insidious grasp, but the process was arduous, leaving Agnieszka drained, disoriented, and deeply shaken. The experience deepened Agnieszka's understanding of the wood's true nature. It wasn't just a physical corruption, it was a living, sentient entity, slowly spreading its tendrils of decay and darkness, twisting the very fabric of reality itself. It was driven by an insidious, ancient malevolence, seeking to claim all living things, to absorb them into its suffocating embrace. Her unique connection to the wood, which allowed her to cleanse its victims, also gave her a terrifying glimpse into its vast, predatory mind. She could feel its ancient, slumbering rage, its slow, inexorable expansion, its profound hunger. This new, chilling understanding solidified her resolve to fight it, not just for her village, but for all the lands threatened by its insidious, ever-growing influence. Word reached Dvernik of a new queen in the neighboring kingdom of Polnia. a young, ambitious ruler who was gathering mages and soldiers to launch a full-scale military assault on the wood. The idea, though seemingly audacious, filled Agnieszka with a flicker of hope. Perhaps, with a combined, concerted force, they could finally push back against the ever-encroaching darkness, reclaiming the land. Sarkhan, however, was vehemently opposed to the plan. He had witnessed countless attempts to fight the wood throughout his long, burdensome life, all ending in devastating failure. He knew its true nature, its cunning and its profound, ancient power, a force that defied conventional warfare. He believed that any direct, military assault would only provoke it further, leading to even greater, more catastrophic destruction. His voice, usually so sharp, held a weary, resigned tone. Despite Sarkhan's dire warnings, Agnieszka, driven by her newfound conviction and a desperate desire for a lasting peace, for a future where her people lived without the constant fear of the wood, decided to seek an audience with the queen. She felt a growing, almost painful urgency, a sense that the wood was becoming stronger, its influence spreading further and faster than ever before. She traveled to the royal court, a place of dazzling opulence, intricate political intrigue, and whispered secrets, a stark contrast to the quiet, earthy simplicity of Dvernik. The queen, a formidable woman with keen, intelligent eyes, listened intently to Agnieszka's insights, particularly her unique understanding of the wood's nature and her unconventional, often messy, methods of countering its pervasive magic. She was fascinated by Agnieszka's raw, untamed power, so different from the refined, scholarly, often sterile magic of her own court mages. Agnieszka tried to convey the subtle, insidious nature of the wood, how it twisted and corrupted, rather than merely destroying. She spoke of its intelligence, its horrifying ability to learn and adapt, and how a brute force attack would be met with an equally devastating, perhaps even more cunning and unexpected, retaliation. She stressed the importance of understanding its true weakness, of finding a way to cleanse it from within, to heal its ancient wound, rather than merely hacking away at its countless branches. The queen, though visibly impressed by Agnieszka's conviction and raw talent, remained committed to her grand, strategic military assault. She saw the wood as a tangible enemy to be conquered, a blight to be excised by force, not a force to be understood or reasoned with. She planned to deploy her mages and soldiers in a coordinated effort to burn back the corrupted forest, believing that sheer overwhelming force could overcome the ancient evil. As the queen's grand assault on the wood commenced, Agnieszka felt a growing, profound sense of unease. Sarkhan's warnings echoed in her mind, a somber counterpoint to the queen's confident pronouncements and the triumphant shouts of the soldiers. The initial push seemed promising, the mages burning back large swaths of corrupted trees, the soldiers clearing the path with axes and fire. But the wood was not simply a collection of trees. It was a living, sentient entity, an ancient consciousness that had endured for millennia. It retaliated with a horrifying cunning, not with open warfare, but with a subtler, more insidious attack. It began to corrupt the very land around the queen's forces, turning fertile earth into barren, lifeless waste, twisting the minds of soldiers into madness, and drawing them, one by one, into its suffocating depths. The carefully planned assault quickly devolved into chaos, a desperate scramble for survival against an enemy that could not be fought with conventional weapons, an enemy that seeped into their very souls. Agnieszka, witnessing the unfolding disaster, felt a desperate, growing urgency. She knew, with chilling certainty, that brute force was utterly useless against the wood. It required a different approach, a deeper understanding, a healing touch. She retreated from the chaotic front lines, leaving the scene of human folly behind, and ventured back into the heart of the wood, drawn by an inexplicable pull, a sense of a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. She sought out ancient, forgotten places where the wood's power was strongest, and where its corruption ran deepest. She remembered the stories from her childhood, the old tales whispered by her babcia, stories of the wood's true heart, of its ancient origins, and of a long-forgotten pact. She felt a profound connection, a resonance, to the old, primordial magic that permeated the ancient, gnarled trees. Deep within the wood, in a place almost completely consumed by the encroaching tendrils of corruption, she stumbled upon a forgotten, crumbling shrine. Here, half hidden by vines and decay, she found ancient carvings and faded inscriptions, telling the true, tragic story of the wood. It was not inherently evil, it had once been a place of vibrant, living magic, a source of life and balance, a heart of the land. But it had been poisoned, long ago, by an act of profound betrayal and sorrow. An ancient queen, driven by grief over a lost love and a desperate, misguided attempt to wield a power she did not understand, had sacrificed her own people, drawing a terrible, corrupting power into the wood. This act had twisted its very essence, transforming it into the malevolent, devouring force it was today. The wood's corruption was not malice, but a manifestation of its ancient, unhealed pain, a deep-seated wound that festered and spread, consuming all in its path. Agnieszka realized with a terrifying, breathtaking clarity that the wood's power was not a force to be fought and destroyed, but a wound to be healed. She also discovered, through these ancient texts and a sudden, intuitive flash of insight, that the dragon, Sarkhan, was intrinsically linked to this ancient history. He was not just a guardian, he was a descendant of the very mages who had first tried to contain the corrupted wood, cursed to live an unnaturally long life, burdened with the seemingly endless task of keeping the wood at bay. His very existence was a testament to the ancient tragedy, a living, breathing link to the suffering of generations. This revelation shifted her entire perception of him, transforming him from a harsh taskmaster into a tragic, lonely figure, carrying the immense, crushing weight of centuries on his shoulders. The curse that bound him was a cruel one. The longer he lived, the more he became attuned to the wood's corruption, slowly losing parts of himself, becoming more like the very thing he fought to contain. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Agnieszka understood that the wood could not be defeated by fire or sword. It needed healing, a restoration of its true, vibrant nature. The solution lay in a powerful, ancient ritual, a desperate gamble that required immense sacrifice. It demanded not only the channeling of immense magical energy but also a profound, empathetic understanding of the wood's ancient pain and a deep willingness to confront its festering wound head-on. This was not a fight, but a spiritual undertaking, a magical surgery on the very soul of the forest. The ritual involved the symbolic sacrifice of human life, not in the way the queen had envisioned. It was a symbolic offering, a return of life and balance to the wood, a reversal of the ancient act of taking that had poisoned it. Agnieszka returned to Sarkhan, sharing her astonishing discoveries. She explained the wood's true nature, the ancient curse, and the horrifying, poignant revelation of his own deep, inescapable connection to it. She proposed the radical, dangerous ritual, a path that defied all of Sarkhan's ingrained beliefs about magic, about power, about the very nature of evil. He was initially resistant, his logical, pragmatic mind struggling to reconcile her intuitive insights with his centuries of experience, his vast, accumulated knowledge. He argued, he scoffed, he tried to reason her out of what he saw as a fool's errand. But Agnieszka, with a newfound conviction, a surprising strength that seemed to have bloomed within her, pressed him, her words filled with an almost desperate urgency. She reminded him of her earlier, unconventional cures, of the times her messy, wild magic had succeeded where his precise, scholarly methods had failed. She painted a vivid, chilling picture of the alternative. The slow, inexorable spread of the wood, consuming everything they held dear, until nothing but corrupted desolation remained. Reluctantly, Sarkhan agreed, swayed not just by her compelling arguments, but by the quiet certainty in her eyes, the raw, undeniable power that now emanated from her. He could no longer deny that her magic, though chaotic and unpredictable, held a profound, essential truth. He understood that his rigid methods, while effective for containment, could never truly heal. Together, they prepared for the ritual. It was a perilous undertaking, requiring a precise alignment of their vastly different magical styles. Agnieszka's wild, earthy magic provided the raw, surging power and the intuitive, empathetic connection to the wood, while Sarkhan's disciplined, intellectual magic provided the structure, the precision, and the intricate knowledge needed to guide and contain the raw energies. They had to work in perfect, absolute synchronicity, their individual strengths complementing each other, their weaknesses covered by the other's abilities. The ritual itself was a grueling, agonizing ordeal, a battle fought on the very soul of the land. They delved deep into the corrupted heart of the wood, to the very source of its ancient wound, the nexus of its pain. Agnieszka, drawing upon her deep, inherent connection to the earth, channeled immense amounts of raw, primordial magic, feeling the wood's ancient pain, its profound sorrow, coursing through her own veins, threatening to overwhelm her. Sarkhan, with his precise incantations, his intricate knowledge of ancient spells, and his immense willpower, guided the turbulent flow, ensuring that the wild power did not overwhelm them both, did not consume them. They faced the wood's ancient consciousness, its rage and despair manifesting as terrifying visions, insidious whispers, and relentless, agonizing attacks that sought to break their minds and spirits. The wood fought back with all its might, trying to overwhelm them, to twist their sanity, to consume them completely. It was a battle of wills, a desperate struggle against a powerful force that sought only to perpetuate its own suffering, its own brokenness. In the midst of this epic struggle, a moment of profound, unbreakable connection formed between Agnieszka and Sarkhan. Their hands met, their magic intertwined, and their minds, for a brief, intense period, became one. Agnieszka felt Sarkon's vast, ancient knowledge, his centuries of experience, his profound weariness, his burden. Sarkon, in turn, felt Agnieszka's raw, untamed power, her deep empathy, her unwavering hope, her fierce compassion. This shared experience solidified their bond, transforming their mentorship into something far deeper, a partnership rooted in mutual respect, profound understanding, and a burgeoning affection that had been simmering beneath the surface for months. The ritual climaxed in a terrifying, beautiful outpouring of magic, a torrent of pure, unbridled energy. Agnieszka, with a final, desperate surge of power that left her utterly drained, poured her entire being into the wood, a symbolic offering of life and renewal, a reversal of the ancient act of taking. The wood, for the first time in centuries, began to change. The malevolent corruption receded, replaced by a gentle, shimmering, healing light. The twisted, gnarled trees slowly straightened, their bark regaining its smooth texture, their leaves regaining their vibrant, healthy green. The air, once heavy with decay and the scent of death, cleared, becoming crisp, sweet, and clean, filled with the scent of pine and fresh earth. The immediate aftermath was one of utter exhaustion and profound relief. The wood was not entirely cured, in the sense of being inert or harmless, but its malevolent corruption had been significantly diminished, its predatory nature subdued. It was still a place of ancient, wild magic, powerful and untamed, but no longer a source of insidious, spreading evil. The delicate, ancient balance had been restored, allowing for the possibility of a different, more harmonious relationship between the wood and humanity. The ancient curse on Sarkon was broken, his unnaturally long life coming to a natural conclusion, though he remained powerful and wise, his centuries of knowledge intact. He looked at Agnieszka with a new kind of admiration, a quiet awe, his harshness softened by a profound gratitude and a deep, unspoken understanding. In the years that followed, the land around Divernik slowly, miraculously began to heal. The once blighted areas regenerated, and new, vibrant life began to flourish. The villagers, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence and a newfound respect, ventured further into the wood, no longer seeing it as a source of terror and insidious death, but as a place of wonder, of wild beauty, and powerful, benevolent magic. Agnieszka and Sarkon continued their work, no longer as master and apprentice, but as true partners, their magic intertwined, their lives bound by a shared purpose and a deep, enduring affection. They traveled, healing pockets of residual corruption, guiding the regrowth of the wood, and teaching others the delicate, crucial art of coexistence. Their relationship deepened and blossomed, evolving into a quiet, profound, and enduring love. Sarkon, once so stoic and withdrawn, so consumed by his ancient burden, found himself inexplicably drawn to Agnieszka's warmth, her unyielding spirit, her vibrant, chaotic energy. Agnieszka, who had once found Sarkon intimidating, frustrating, and often infuriating, discovered the gentle, caring soul beneath his gruff, ancient exterior, the profound depth of his commitment. Their home in the tower, once a cold, forbidding place, became a sanctuary of shared knowledge, of quiet laughter, and of deep, abiding affection. Agnieszka, with her intuitive, wild magic, and Sarkon, with his methodical, scholarly approach, found a perfect, complementary balance. She would often drag him out into the ancient forest, urging him to feel the raw magic, to listen to the whispers of the trees, to reconnect with the earth, while he would patiently guide her through ancient texts, teaching her the intricacies of magical theory, the history of their world. Their story became a legend, whispered by the firesides in Divernik and far beyond, a tale of courage, of unlikely heroes, and of healing. Agnieszka, the clumsy, unremarkable girl who had stumbled into a destiny far grander than she could have ever imagined, became a powerful and revered sorceress, her name spoken with reverence and awe. Sarkon, the dragon, shed his fearsome, ancient reputation, becoming known as a wise and benevolent guardian, his wisdom sought by rulers and common folk alike. They established a new order, a different way of living with the wood, not fighting it, but understanding it, nurturing it, and living in harmony with its ancient, powerful magic. The wood, though changed, remained a powerful entity, a living, breathing force of nature, ancient and wild. It was no longer the malevolent entity of old, but a complex, ancient ecosystem, capable of both immense beauty and formidable, respectful power. Agnieszka and Sarkon understood that their work was never truly finished. The balance was delicate, the threads of magic intricate, and vigilance was always required. But now, instead of dreading the encroaching darkness, the people of the valley learned to respect the wood, to understand its rhythms, and to live in a symbiotic relationship with its ancient, revitalized magic. The era of fear and sacrifice had ended, replaced by a time of understanding, of respectful coexistence, and a deep, abiding connection to the wild, untamed magic that pulsed through their world. And in the heart of it all, two unlikely souls, a clumsy, wild-haired girl and a stern, ancient wizard, had found not just their purpose, but a love that transcended the boundaries of magic, of time, and of all expectations.